The scent of burning ambition is the ozone of the modern world. You sit in the blue light glow of your own funeral, watching the liquidation of your primal drive in real time. This is digital castration, the systemic suppression of the masculine impulse to conquer, replaced by the sterile, safe, and utterly useless impulse to observe. You are no longer a participant in the architecture of reality. You are a data point in a simulation of success. The screen has performed a visceral breach of your baseline, replacing the fire of the hunt with the metabolic suicide of the scroll. Your breath is shallow, trapped in the fascial tension of a nervous system that has surrendered its sovereignty to a glass rectangle. The mechanism of this castration is not physical. It is a profound extraction of your neural capital. The basal ganglia, designed to reward the kinetic strike and the conquest of territory, have been hijacked by low-effort stimuli. Every notification is a microdose of artificial validation that blunts your edge. You feel the entropy in your bones. You feel the drift. You believe you are informed, but you are merely a biological host for corporate memes designed to keep you compliant and sedentary. The glucose guillotine of the digital economy rewards the observer while it executes the builder. You are living in a state of chronic endocrine surrender, trading your testosterone for the cheap dopamine of a like. When the gray and unyielding rain begins to hammer against the steel of your skull and the world feels like a hollow, loud, and empty broken hull, you feel the weight of the anchor pulling the marrow into the floor, while the ghosts of your former selves are screaming at the door. Push against the gravity until the pulse is the only sound you know, in the freezing, bitter silence where the weak will never go. Harden the frame before the rot reaches the core of the bone. In this territory of digital shadows, you are standing all alone. The 10-year rot for the digital observer is a total loss of agency. By the time you realize the cost of your connection, your hardware will be too degraded to mount a defense. This is the logic of the zoo. You are provided with food, shelter, and endless entertainment, and in exchange, you surrender your capacity to strike. Your ambition has been blunted by the constant friction of meaningless information. You are a fragmented entity, unable to focus the lethal intensity of your mind on a single target for more than a few seconds. This is the systemic erasure of the human will. The fascial tension in your body is the physical memory of a predator that is being turned into a pet. You were designed for the friction of the hunt, for the structural integrity required to face a cold and unyielding world, but the screen has replaced that world with a soft, frictionless simulation. You no longer need to strike, you only need to swipe. This is the ultimate extraction of power. The machine does not want your body, it wants your drive. It wants to harvest your focus to power its own expansion, leaving you as a depleted resource in its wake. Hold the plank while the world starts to crumble and fade into gray. We are the ones who will stand at the end of this long, bitter day. The rhythm of pulse in the dark is the sound of a closing account as we measure the cost of the lies and the staggering final amount. Put on your gloves for the strike, for the air is becoming thin and filled with the scent of the end. We have no rituals to follow and no broken bridges to mend. Your war chest of metabolic energy is being raided by the infinite scroll. Every second you spend in the digital hall of mirrors is a second you are not investing in the hardening of your frame. The system wants you in a state of perpetual distraction because a distracted human is an easily managed human. But the architect does not seek to be managed. We seek to be autonomous. We seek the visceral breach of the digital wall. We do not unleash potential, we conduct targeted strikes. Biological bankruptcy is the destiny of the screen-bound. When your adrenal glands are scorched by artificial urgency and your dopamine receptors are silenced by the constant roar of low-value rewards, you become a liability to your own survival. The screen is a metabolic trap, a way to ensure that your energy is dissipated in 1,000 different directions, leaving none for the pursuit of your primary goal. This is the systemic drift toward total domesticity. You are being gelded by the very tools you believe are empowering you. The final audit of your domesticity is now in session. The screen is not a window. It is an artificial placenta, a life support system for a version of you that was never meant to survive. We are dissecting the visual bypass, the process by which your optic nerve consumes a simulation of victory, tricking your nervous system into a state of post-coital compliance without a single physical strike. This is the ultimate theft of agency. You are experiencing the andropause of the digital age, a systemic cooling of the blood, where the fire of the hunt hunt is extinguished by the blue light of 1,000 trivialities. Your structural integrity has been replaced by metabolic inertia. The biological cost of your connection is the thinning of your reality. While you observe, your prefrontal cortex undergoes a process of functional pruning, excising the pathways required for high-risk, high-reward territorial expansion. You are becoming a ghost in your own lineage. Your ancestors did not endure the friction of the ice and the blade so that you could dissolve into a chair, vibrating at the frequency of someone else's highlight reel. This is genetic entropy. The screen is the medium through which your ancestry is liquidated, turned into data to be sold back to you as a subscription to your own life. The air is thick with the scent of a dying silent doge, covering the traces of the spirit and the ancient primal pain. The weight of the anchor is pulling the marrow into the floor. Cold is the stall in the furnace behind the heavy silent door. Your dihanya is the measure of the spirit and the raw, hard fact in a world that has replaced every human thought with a sterile, cold pack. Or Jemaisa from the shadows until the blood begins to burn like fire, to kill the colonial leash of every cheap and plastic false desire. Hold the planker in the silence until your spirit is turned into stone. In this war for your thoughts, you are standing entirely alone. We are shifting the logic from observation to extraction. To reclaim your frame, you must reintroduce the variable of physical threat into your environment. The screen has sanitized your existence, removing the lethal intensity required for the architecture of a real life. You must perform a visceral breach, a violent disconnection from the digital umbilical cord. If you do not feel the friction of the world, you are not living. You are merely being processed. The system requires your passivity to maintain its own structural integrity. Your aggression is the only element it cannot account for. The 4,500-word audit concludes with the kinetic ultimatum. You have two choices: remain a node in the network of decay or become a source of systemic friction. The architect does not strive for balance. The architect enforces a hierarchy of intent. You must treat your attention as a war chest, to be guarded with the intensity of a predator. Every minute of passive consumption is a micro-liquidation of your future. You are currently in a state of terminal debt, and the only way to settle the account is through a series of high-impact, high-friction strikes in the tangible world. Put on your perchatki, for the work is filthy and the night is thin. There is no place for the ritual of the sorrow or the sin. We build the scaffold while the dosh erases the names of the weak, finding the logic of fire in the silence that others will never speak. The style of your will must be forged in the heat of the strike to become the one thing that the algorithms will never, ever like. Or Jemaisa from the comfort, from the lies and the digital dust, until you find in the bone a power that you finally can trust. The digital castration ends with the hardening of the bone. We have preemptively analyzed the drift of your ambition and found it wanting. The screen is the anesthetic that makes the removal of your will feel like progress, but the anesthetic is wearing off. You can feel the cold now. You can feel the absolute weight of your wasted cycles. This is the dopamine of the architect, the realization that you have the power to destroy the simulation by simply refusing to inhabit it. The strike is not a goal. It is your new baseline. The extraction is final. The audit of the screen is closed. You are either the builder of the fortress or the debris in the ditch. There is no middle ground in the architecture of the hunt. Close the screen. Reclaim the bone. The architect is now autonomous. The architecture of the screen is designed to minimize your structural integrity. It rewards the fluid, the yielding, and the reactive. It punishes the rigid, the deep, and the autonomous. To survive this era of digital castration, you must become a source of friction. You must refuse the frictionless life of the consumer and embrace the high-friction life of the architect. You must treat every moment away from the screen as a tactical necessity, a way to reinforce your perimeter and harden your will against the colonial algorithms. The 10-year rot is not a threat. It is a settled debt for those who refuse to disconnect. If you do not conduct a lethal observation of your habits now, you will wake up in a decade and find that your ambition has been surgically removed, replaced by a dull, aching longing for a life you were too distracted to build. The extraction is final. The audit is open. You are either the builder or the debris. The biological audit reveals a more sinister architecture. Your screens are not just observers. They are active agents of hormonal arson. We are witnessing the large-scale evaporation of the androgenic baseline required for human conquest. The blue light is a signal to your circadian hardware that the hunt is over, even before it began. You are currently trapped in a state of chronic high-estrogen passivity, where your scramble for status is limited to the movement of your thumb across a polished surface. This is the liquidation of the kinetic male, the conversion of a territorial predator into a stationary, light-sensitive consumer. The synapse has replaced the sinew. Your brain, in its desperate search for a victory, accepts the phantom achievement of a digital notification. It is a chemical lie. While you feel the microspike of completion, your actual muscle mass is undergoing asymptotic decay. Your bone density is yielding to the sedentary demands of the grid. This is not a lifestyle choice. It is a clinical removal of the teeth. A man without the capacity for aggression is merely a resource to be harvested by those who have maintained their structural rigidity. The screen provides the anesthetic. The system performs the removal. The air is thick with the scent of a dying silent doge, covering the traces of the spirit and the ancient primal pain. You hold the planka of your life above the frozen, empty ground, while the rhythm of the machine is the only hollow, metal sound. The cold of the style is biting deep into the marrow and the chest, disturbing the peace of the ghosts in their long and wretched rest. Ojimesa from the shadows until the blood begins to burn like fire, to kill the colonial leash of every cheap and plastic false desire. Your ambition has been outsourced to a simulation. You have traded your drive for a feed that feeds on you. The endocrine sovereignty that once allowed your ancestors to bridge the gap between intent and reality has been liquidated. You are currently experiencing phantom ambition, the sensation of wanting to move while your legs are fused to the floor of your digital cell. This is the ultimate extraction. The system has identified that your drive is the only variable it cannot fully predict, so it has decided to neutralize it with a flood of synthetic, low-stakes entertainment. The fascial tension in your body is the physical script of your failure. It is the record of every strike you didn't take, every confrontation you avoided by retreating into the glow. You are being terraformed from within. Your nervous system is being pruned to remove any pathway that leads to high-friction, high-reward activity. You are becoming user-friendly, a biological unit that is easy to navigate, easy to predict, and easy to discard. The extraction of your aggression is the final step in the process of your domestication. Put on your perchatki, for the work is filthy and the night is thin. There is no place for the ritual of the sorrow or the sin. Your dichenya is the measure of the spirit and the raw, hard fact in a world that has replaced every human thought with a sterile, cold pact. We carve our names in the granite while the others melt like snow, holding the high, hard line where the weak will never go. The audit is undeniable. The screen is a chemical contraceptive for your greatness. It ensures that you remain a spectator in a game where you were designed to be the apex. The 10-year decay is not a distant threat. It is the current trajectory of your endocrine health. You are borrowing energy from a future you won't have the strength to inhabit. To survive, you must initiate a total evacuation of the digital cage. You must reclaim the friction of the real world, the cold, the sweat, and the absolute weight of a kinetic strike. The strike is the only truth left in a world of echoes. Either you find the will to disconnect and reconstruct your frame, or you wait for the final, painless liquidation. The architect does not negotiate with the screen. The architect breaks the screen to see the world as it truly is, a field of extraction where only the rigid survive.